Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have a news story out of the city of Boston where candidate for mayor Josh Kraft has officially ended his campaign for mayor. Now this is also a surprising story and also kind of not really surprising story at the same time. So if you're unfamiliar with this race, the philanthropist Josh Kraft was challenging Democratic incumbent mayor Michelle Wu to be the mayor of Boston. And on Tuesday, there was a preliminary election in Boston for the top two candidates in the race to advance to the general election. Now, in that race, it was widely speculated that Michelle Wu and Josh Kraft would ultimately end up advancing to the general, and that is exactly what happened. However, the margins of which it happened were very, very massive in Michelle Wu's favor. And just to show you here in the Boston mayoral race, we do have, I believe, the results of how it ended up going. And it showed that Michelle Wu got 71.84% of the vote, Josh Kraft 23.07%. So, in a few days before this, you may remember I did a video from Emerson College of a poll of this race, and it showed Michelle Wu at 72%, Josh Kraft 22%. So the Emerson poll exactly got the margin of the preliminary election of Michelle Wu versus Josh Kraft. It got it exactly right. So got to give Emerson their props on that one. They nailed the results of this race. So obviously, and I talked about this in the video as well, that the chances of Josh Kraft defeating Michelle Wu in the general election were zero. There was no chance Josh Kraft was going to defeat Michelle Wu. Even early on in this race, it didn't really look like there was much of a chance of that happening, but the preliminary election just made it crystal clear there was no chance Josh Kraft was going to defeat Michelle Wu. But still, Kraft ran through the preliminary election and let that all play out. But now in an article from WCVB, the local news station in Boston, philanthropist Josh Kraft, the son of New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, is officially ending his mayor campaign. And it was following the blistering defeat in the Boston's preliminary election. He said, "My decision is to suspend my campaign, my candidacy for mayor as of today, and I appreciate you letting me announce it here tonight," Kraft said in an exclusive interview with the News Center's anchor Maria Stefanos. He said, "The last couple of days since Tuesday, I've sat and listened to my team, our volunteers, my family, my friends, advisors, and it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. I got into this to make an impact, as I've done my whole life. Building a sense of community to make change for the greater good," Kraft said. "When I kept looking at the next 8 weeks, the negativity and all that it was going to be about, I realized, wow, I can do more. I can make a better impact for residents of the city of Boston." Mayor Michelle Wu, the incumbent, entered the preliminary election with a massive lead in the polls and led the election result on Tuesday by a margin of 49% over Kraft, again, as I just mentioned. In a statement, Wu responded to Kraft's withdrawal. "I respect Josh's decision and thank him for caring about our city deeply enough to want to make it better," Wu wrote. "We are going to continue over the next 2 months and beyond to keep engaging our community members about the critical work in front of us and how we keep making Boston a safe, welcoming home for everyone." As the top two finishers, Wu and Kraft were in a position to advance to the general election in November. Community advocate Domingos De Rosa and former police officer Robert Capucci were eliminated from the contention by the results. Kraft, who has never held public office before, entered the race in February. He led his family's philanthropic efforts, served on several boards, and spent 30 years with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. While both Kraft and Wu are Democrats, he campaigned largely on criticism of the current administration. He attempted to position himself as someone who would listen and learn from the people, but never gained enough traction to challenge the popular incumbent with national notoriety. Kraft said he would divert his attention and $3 million to organizations focused on the crisis in the neighborhood known as Mass and Cass. He said, "What I'll be doing is the money that I would have needed to get through the next 8 weeks of mudslinging is take that money and some more money and work with the Gavin Foundation and the Phoenix to fight to take those first steps to find a real solution to the human tragedy and public safety crisis of Mass and Cass, as well to re-energize a similar program, Operation Exit, which helps people coming home from incarceration not just find jobs, but find careers," Kraft said during the interview. Boston voters have not ousted an incumbent mayor since John Hines defeated James Michael Curley in 1949. Following Curley's prison sentence, Hines previously served as a, quote, temporary mayor for 5 months while Curley was in federal prison, according to the city archives. Kraft split from his top campaign advisors less than 1 week before the preliminary election. At the time, Kraft's campaign also confirmed he was pouring $3.5 million of his own funding into the fight, bringing his total investment to more than $5 million. Now, for Michelle Wu, who's the city of Boston's first Asian and female leader, has been bolstered in part by her defense of the city against attacks from the President Trump and the Trump administration. Members of his administration, often led by Trump's border czar Tom Homan, have accused the city of Boston of not doing enough to crack down on illegal immigration and threatened to do a surge in arrests. Federal immigration officials are currently conducting an enforcement surge in the region, and the Department of Justice launched a lawsuit against the city and the mayor last week. So this news is obviously very significant, as this does essentially end the 2025 mayoral race in Boston. Now, I do believe the way this works, and if anyone knows more about this, you can leave a comment below telling me for sure if I get anything wrong here. But now that Kraft has dropped out of the race, I do believe, unless his name can get removed from the ballot now that the election has happened, Josh Kraft's name will remain on the ballot for November. But with him suspending his campaign, the odds of him getting any significant amount of vote is going to be very, very low. Any people that go to vote for the mayoral election in Boston in 2025 may vote in Josh Kraft if they don't want to vote for Michelle Wu, as kind of like a anti-Wu sentiment. But now that Kraft has suspended his campaign, this race is over. Michelle Wu is going to be reelected as mayor of Boston, and it's not really any surprise here. When you look at the preliminary vote for the city of Boston and how it voted, there was not one part of Boston that voted for Josh Kraft. Every single area of the city of Boston voted for Michelle Wu over Kraft. So it became very clear here, and like why Josh Kraft dropped out. Not only did Josh Kraft not have any chance at winning this race against Michelle Wu, he didn't have any chance at making it even remotely close or competitive. At this point, the best he could probably do would probably have been losing this race like 65-35. And I don't even think that was even possible based on how this preliminary election ended up going. So when we see everything said and done here, it's not really too shocking why. That Emerson poll again showed Wu leading 73-22. Josh Kraft officially withdraws from this race. Though the ballot still has Michelle Wu, Josh Kraft, and a write-in option, we're going to see Michelle Wu be elected as mayor of Boston. Now, I wanted to update you on this because it's a very significant development in this race. This will also likely be the last race I do, or video I do on the 2025 Boston mayoral race. Now that this race is essentially over, Michelle Wu is going to win, be reelected as mayor, and that's pretty much where it all ends on that one. But this is very significant. It's interesting that Josh Kraft was not able to catch as much traction in this race as he probably thought, being the son of owner of the Patriots, Robert Kraft. He was not able to really catch any significant traction in this race, and Michelle Wu really showed a very strong ability at holding on to this race and having such a massive lead in the polls as she did throughout really this entire cycle. So that was also certainly very significant. The early polling that was done on the primary side of things showed Michelle Wu with a very large lead over Josh Kraft, but the Emerson poll at the end really was a big awakening just how much support Michelle Wu ended up having in this race. So definitely a lot of props given to Wu and her campaign and how well they consolidated support for the eventual primary preliminary election in this race. So that's the bottom line for this video. Michelle Wu is going to be reelected as mayor of Boston. Josh Kraft suspends his campaign. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you did, leave a comment below telling me your thoughts and any other video ideas you would like to see me do. Again, also please remember to hit like and subscribe as I post multiple videos every day that you're not going to want to miss. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today we have a very important poll out of the state of New Jersey, which shows that in the governor's race, Republican Jack Ciattarelli is within striking distance of flipping the seat from blue to red in November of 2025 against Democrat Mikie Sherrill. Now, I am going to go over this poll in the article from Newsweek that details the poll, and then I'm going to give my own thoughts about this, because there is something very important about this poll that does need to be talked about. So, first things first, in the article from Newsweek, it talks about the Republican Jack Ciattarelli has inched closer to Democratic Representative Mikie Sherrill in the New Jersey governor's race, with a new poll showing a statistical dead heat ahead of the November election. Now, New Jersey is a state that has pivoted recently at the national level. It's usually been a very safe Democratic state, but back in 2024, Donald Trump only lost the state to Kamala Harris by around 6 points, which is giving the Republicans a lot of optimism heading into 2025 that they can win. Another important note for Jack Ciattarelli was that he was the governor candidate in 2021 for the Republicans and only lost by around 3 points in that race. So that, again, is also giving Republicans a lot of optimism. Now, in a new poll conducted between September 8th and 10th and released by National Research Incorporated, shows Mikie Sherrill, the Democrat, leading at 47% to Jack Ciattarelli's 45%, only about a 2-point lead in this race. Of the about 600 likely voters that were surveyed, in the poll was a plus minus margin of error of around 4 points. The survey described the race as tight, and New Jersey voters' moods as, quote, the most pessimistic to date. Roughly 57% of all New Jersey likely voters said the state is on the wrong track, and among those specific voters, approximately 78% tossed blame at Murphy and his policies that they are making the state more expensive and less safe. Only 14% blame Republican President Donald Trump. Ciattarelli, the ex-state assemblyman, is also currently ahead with key swing groups, including unaffiliated voters, working and middle-class voters, and voters who voted in the 2021 gubernatorial election that he lost to Phil Murphy, according to the poll. Okay, so that's what the numbers say. And in the New Jersey governor's race now, we see on the chart here, the National Research poll adds in to the numbers, Sherrill at 47, Ciattarelli 45, 8% undecided. Now, a big wrinkle on this poll, a very important one here, is National Research Incorporated is a Republican-affiliated pollster that is sponsored by Jack Ciattarelli's campaign. And I have a general rule of thumb for these internal polls, which is typically when they're sponsored by a campaign, I add about 5 points to the candidate that the campaign is not advocating for. So this poll is sponsored by Jack Ciattarelli, so I'm adding about 5 points to Mikie Sherrill's Democratic lead for this race. You can go back to a lot of videos I've done. That's my general rule of thumb. There's a lot of differentiating data on this topic about internal polls and how much they value or overvalue or undervalue certain candidates, but usually a 5-point margin is right around the average or so of that. So given that, yes, it is a 2-point race for Sherrill versus Ciattarelli, which is certainly very good news for Ciattarelli, but I don't believe that 2-point lead for Sherrill this current point in time is very accurate. And of that 8% undecided, I would think she's probably around 51 or 52% at this current point in time. Now, there's a lot to be taken away from polling, because the truth is, depending on how you conduct a poll, you could realistically get a poll to basically convey pretty much anything. For instance, I'll take a poll from back in July from StimSite Research. This is the former pollster that used to run the Monmouth University polling. It shows Sherrill leading 48-42, about a 6-point lead. A lot of the polls we've seen have seen very similar numbers to this, with around a 6 to 7-point lead or more for Sherrill over Ciattarelli. 45%, this is also the highest we've seen Ciattarelli polling thus far in the early polling numbers. But I don't put so much stock in the polls as much as I do recent election results and a lot of trends. The polls I do think are very important, but when you look at the recent election results in New Jersey from 2021, in the Republican wave year of 2021, this is when Joe Biden's approval ratings started going very bad. The governor elections are typically the opposite of what the party in the White House is currently doing. And in this one, New Jersey, despite being a safe Democratic state, only voted for Phil Murphy over Jack Ciattarelli by about 3.2%. Murphy got 51.2%, Ciattarelli got 48%. Now, just briefly comparing that to what we saw in 2017, Phil Murphy got 55.7%, Kim Godano, the Republican, got 42.2%. I don't think we're going to see something like this, where it was a massive, over 10-point win for the Democrat in New Jersey. I don't think we're going to see something like this in 2025. I think we're going to see Jack Ciattarelli be a lot more competitive. But let's look at the presidential race from 2024. This is what's giving the Democrats a little bit of ease, or a little bit of unease, and Republicans a lot of optimism for 24, was how well President Trump did. And in this race, Kamala Harris won by 5.9%. Harris got 51.79%. Trump got 45.9%. So why am I making this point to you? What is so important about this? Well, let's look at this poll. Again, a Republican internal poll shows Ciattarelli at 45%, Sherrill at 47%. Ciattarelli at 45% is right around that number that Trump got in 2024, around 45.9%. Now, obviously that's pretty good news that he's getting around the same amount of support that Trump got in 2024, but let's not forget that Kamala Harris still won the state by 5.9% and got 51.79%. So if we use that same rule that I just applied, where I gave Sherrill an additional 5% or so, because it is an internal Republican poll sponsored by Ciattarelli's campaign, that would put Sherrill around 52 to 45, which would almost be an exact identical matchup to what we just saw Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump be in 2024, 51.79 to 45.89. It would almost be exact mirror image of the race. So this poll is a Republican internal poll, and it is good news for Jack Ciattarelli that Sherrill and Ciattarelli is a 2-point race. But it's a 2-point race in the Ciattarelli internal poll. That's going to show him in the best possible situation, and one that the rest of the polling thus far have not yet done so. Now, it is closer than their prior poll from back in July, which was 46 to 43. Ciattarelli's gone up 2%, Sherrill's gone up 1%, but again, it's an internal poll, so I'm not putting a ton of stock into it, when the rest of the polls have shown Sherrill leading over Ciattarelli by around a likely margin. But ultimately, again, I think there are two sides here, where Republicans are going to say, because of this poll, this is a super close race that Ciattarelli can win, and it's going to be very tight under like 1 or 2%. And I don't think that's completely accurate. The Democrats are going to say, since an internal poll, this isn't even close to true, and Sherrill's going to win by like over 10 or 15 points or something, and I don't think that's accurate either. I think the truth is in the middle there, where we're going to see right now Mikie Sherrill leading in this race over Jack Ciattarelli. The national environment for these governor elections is usually the opposite of the president, as I mentioned, and given New Jersey is more of a Democratic state, I think it would take a lot of history breaking for Jack Ciattarelli to defeat Mikie Sherrill in this race. Though it is worth noting in most polls, Sherrill is hovering around that 47, 48% or so threshold. In the polling, she has not broken over 50% a lot of times, which does present an opening for Jack Ciattarelli. But as Ciattarelli's polling right now in the high 30s to low 40% or so, I do think Mikie Sherrill is overall on track to narrowly win this election, but I think she's going to win it by a similar margin to what we saw go in the presidential race in 2024, where Harris won it by around 6 points. I think right now, based on the latest projections, Mikie Sherrill is tracking to win by around 6 to 8 points in the New Jersey governor's race right now. It's possible Jack Ciattarelli can win, and this poll is the start of something, but I do want to caution a lot of Republicans in this race, because I do still think Mikie Sherrill has the advantage, and buying into one poll sponsored by the Republican candidate's campaign that still shows him losing by 2 points. Yes, it is very close. Yes, it is under the margin of error, but it still shows a 2-point race. And let's take the margin of error into account. The margin of error is 4 points. Since it's the Republican poll, let's add that 4% to Mikie Sherrill's numbers. What do you get? 51-45. That same exact number from 2024. So again, I get why Republicans are going to be very excited by this poll. I get why they're going to feel very optimistic and that Jack Ciattarelli can win this race. But again, the trend for the polling has been pretty consistent that Mikie Sherrill has a lead in this race. The election history, though it got a lot closer in 2024, we still saw Kamala Harris win by 5.9%. And then in 2021, when the election environment was probably the most Republican favorable that it could be, Ciattarelli got a lot closer, but lost by 3.2%. I'm still on the, I would say, mindset that we're going to see New Jersey go for the Democrat Mikie Sherrill by more than 5 points. I don't think it goes Democratic by more than 10. I think it's under 10 points, but in between 5 and 10 is where I have this race right now in the likely Democratic category. But I'm interested to hear what you think. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. What you think about this New Jersey governor's race. Do you think this will be a Mikie Sherrill win by over 5 to 10 like I do? Or do you think it's going to be a closer one and maybe Jack Ciattarelli can pull off a win? Leave all your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe, and hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today we have some news out of the state of Missouri, where Missouri's legislature has officially passed a new Republican-drawn congressional map, which seeks to add 1 Republican seat to the Republicans' advantage prior to the 2026 midterm elections. The article that says Missouri state legislature has passed a plan to redraw the state's congressional map and turn Democratic Representative Emanuel Cleaver's district into a Republican-leaning district. The latest move in a nationwide redistricting fight aimed at shifting the balance of power in Washington in next year's midterm elections. Just weeks after Texas successfully passed maps aimed at netting Republicans up to 5 more congressional districts, Missouri's State House and Senate convened in a special session to redraw the lines to benefit the GOP. They had far less room to grow than Texas Republicans did, given that 6 of Missouri's 8 U.S. House seats are already represented by Republicans. But the new map will carve up Cleaver's district in the Kansas City area and in the hopes of creating one new red seat there. In between Texas and Missouri moves, California Democrats voted to place a measure before voters this November to temporarily override the state's independent redistricting commission and draw new maps that could result in a gain of 5 Democratic seats. And this is a note just from me here. In the early polling I've seen thus far, that measure does seem to be pretty popular in California, so I would expect that to pass and the Democrats could get an extra 5 seats for 2026 as well. Missouri Governor Mike Keogh, a Republican, is expected to sign the new map into law. Keogh called this special session as President Trump urged Republican-led states to embark on a rare mid-decade redraw aimed at shoring up his party's majority in the House for 2026. The new Missouri map passed with little legislative opposition, while Democrats and outside groups vehemently opposed the plan and launched protests in Jefferson City this week. They didn't have the numbers to jeopardize the GOP plans, and the bill quickly sped through both chambers this week. Republican State Representative Dirk Deaton, who sponsored the House bill to redraw the lines, told NBC News in an interview when it passed that he believed the maps will ultimately result in Missouri values being reflected and represented in Washington, D.C., and we know Missouri is a very competitive state, or a very conservative state, Asked why state Republicans push for this outside of the normal decennial redistricting cycle, and if the president's urging prompted the move, Deaton replied that Trump's leadership certainly is helpful, and that we have to do it every 10 years, but if we can improve on our work, we should do that. State Senator Brad Hudson, a Republican pushing the bill in the upper chamber, noted the mid-decade redistricting is not something that happens all the time, he told NBC. It's important to note that this is something that we can do. It is certainly within our power. Republicans didn't support the measure unilaterally, though, with a handful of GOP legislatures voting against the bill. That included the State House Speaker, Jonathan Patterson, who told Kansas City NBC affiliate that he didn't, or the KSHB, that he didn't support how the plan carved up the city's county, Jackson County, into districts represented by 3 different congresspeople. State Rep. Brian Wolfen, a Republican whose district is in the southern east part of the state, also voted against it, blasting the move on the floor as a partisan power grab that runs afoul of conservative values. There's nothing conservative about using our supermajority to grab more power, he said. And it goes on to talk about the Democratic opposition as well. Okay, so this is obviously very interesting news. This is not really super surprising news. This was expected to be happening, but that's ultimately what ended up happening. Now, Missouri is an interesting state because it did vote in 2024 for Donald Trump by 18.4%, a safe Republican win at 15 points. But still, Kamala Harris got 40% of the vote in the state of Missouri. And I've seen this argument going around online a lot of saying, like, well, a state like Massachusetts, Donald Trump won 36%, and there is no Republican representation. Missouri is even less red than Massachusetts is blue, and yet Republicans, currently in the House level, hold a majority of 6-2 House seats, with them now targeting Missouri 5 with Cleaver's seat and trying to make it red. So you could say that to a non-political observer that, well, doesn't that seem very contradictory? Yeah, it does. But this is also how a lot of gerrymandering and political redistricting works, which is politicians say one thing, but if they have an opportunity to support their party, they're going to do it. So you see a state like Missouri is going to shift their district to be more red, like they can. Like, for instance, in Massachusetts, like I brought up, every single seat is blue. It's all Democratic controlled, so why would they make a seat red for no reason when they don't have to? Missouri, as the article mentioned, is overwhelmingly Republican in the state legislature, so if they have the opportunity to make it red, why would they not? It's morally not great for America and American democracy. It's obviously, gerrymandering is something that's been very despised throughout American history, but it is legally, in most cases, legally fine, and Republicans are taking advantage of it now before the 2026 midterm elections. As Democrats in California, Gavin Newsom is attempting to take advantage of it as well, trying to draw out several Republicans, give the Democrats a boost. Democrats have already really done so in Illinois. They already have it, but they are trying to take advantage of it potentially even more. So this really happens in pretty much every single state, or in every single state where they can. There are some states where it cannot happen because, for instance, the governor, the state legislature is one political party, and the other party, or the other party controls, say, the state Supreme Court, so they would essentially veto and overrule anything like that happening, like I do believe is the case in Pennsylvania. The map is like relatively pretty favorable for the Republicans, where the GOP holds 10-7 of the House map, even though at the state level, the presidential race, it voted Republican by 1.7%, so essentially an even split. But again, I believe the Supreme Court is Republican majority there. So gerrymandering, there's a lot to think about it. Not a super well-liked practice, but it's one that both parties absolutely do. The difference is this time, Republicans are the ones going on attack and blatantly doing it. The Democrats are saying, how can they do that? That's not fair. Even though the fact is, both the Democrats and the Republicans do it. It just depends which serves their political party better for the situation that they go after each other. That's the kind of objective truth on this. This isn't saying that Republicans do it and Democrats don't, or Democrats do it and Republicans don't do it. The truth is, both do it the exact same. They just do it when it's most advantageous for them. So with the Republicans now redrawing this map, they're going to get Missouri 5 onto their side. So we can go to the House map for Missouri on 270towin.com here, and we can add the map. We can add the 5th district to the Republican category. I'm just going to leave it as likely Republican now, just to show you what it would look like. This would give the Republicans 7 of Missouri's 8 congressional seats, with only Missouri 1, with Democrat Wesley Bell being the Democratic seat in Missouri. As for the overall consensus rankings for 2026 right now, this gets Republicans up to 213, Democrats are at 201. Now, what this map does not do yet, it does not take into account the redistricting going on in California, where that map has not officially been finalized as the vote is scheduled for November 2025 to redraw the map. So we're still probably around 6 to 8 months before we get actual clarity on how that will go. But once that does happen, we can expect around 5 Democratic seats to flip in California. So if this redistricting process across the nation seems very confusing and very even annoying, yeah, it absolutely is. But that's what's happening right now. So that's the latest, where Texas is redistricted and now has about, I think, 4 more Republican seats, and then Texas 28 with Henry Cuellar, which is still a toss-up, but gives the Republicans a better chance at winning that toss-up than they had before. Let's just, for the sake of argument, give that district to the GOP. That would get the Republicans up to 214 and puts the Republicans in striking distance of the 218 House majority. Now Missouri's 5th district being added gives the Republicans an extra House seat, getting them to 214. There are also rumors President Trump is looking to try and redraw the House maps in Kansas and Nebraska, both of which have one district that's either Democratic or, in Nebraska's case, projected to be Democratic after 2026. If the president can get Nebraska's and Kansas's 2 Democratic districts out of there, that would get Republicans up to 216 and really give the Republicans a strong chance at holding the House, which is why in California, you're looking at Gavin Newsom, who's trying to draw out, I believe it's 5 Democrats in Valadeo, and Young Kim, and Ken Calvert, and Kevin Kiley as well. I want to say there may be one more that was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, or yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there may be a 5th Republican district. I believe it was Darrell Iss's district, trying to get drawn out by Newsom. If that happens, that brings the Republicans down to 211, Democrats to 204. Again, still a very competitive election where either party can win the House. Though Republicans also have threatened to redistrict as well. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis has mentioned that he wants to try and go after some of the Democrats in this one. Jared Moskowitz's district would probably be in that one. Darren Soto's Florida 9 could be. We could see Hillsboro's Florida 14, Kathy Castor could be out. That would give the Republicans another 3. And then maybe another 2 Republicans districts going after 2 of the Democrats, say maybe Florida 20, and then maybe Florida 25, if the Republicans stick with that 5-point promise. And at that point, if that happened, that'd bring the Republicans back to 216. So this redistricting in general, I don't know why I keep saying Florida, this redistricting in general is obviously getting very complicated, very hard to follow. I'm trying to do my best to keep you updated with videos as possible as this news breaks. Right now, the only ones we know for sure that are happening is Texas has happened for sure, and now it's looking like Missouri for sure is going to happen. California we expect. Florida we probably expect, and from there we'll have to wait and see. But Missouri for sure, it looks like it's going to be the case where there'll be an extra Republican seat, and Texas for sure has already been redistricted. That is the latest on redistricting in the state of Missouri. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you did, leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts and any other future video ideas you would like to see me go over. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.